On a bright sunny day in October, Kelly Hopping and Renee Kaler hike up a mountain in Deer Creek Canyon near Haley looking for sheep.
Tell me, where are the sheep? Where did you see the sheep?
Oh,
Go.
They're right up there in that saddle.
We reach the saddle and the mountain is literally moving with sheep.
Yeah, they're heading through plot 4 and then down into 2 and over to 3 right now.
Kelly Hopping, a Boise State University associate professor, is finishing up the 3rd year of a research study to see whether targeted grazing with sheep can reduce cheatgrass levels on the range. Sheep are a browsing animal that typically eat forbs, grasses, and shrubs on rangelands. Most of the targeted grazing projects or research studies have used cattle as a tool to reduce cheatgrass, since cattle eat primarily grass.
I think it's a great opportunity to use sheep to try to graze the cheatgrass because it's something that hasn't been looked at as much before. People are usually using cattle, and for good reason, but in this steeper terrain where these allotments are permitted for sheep, we thought it would be worth trying.
Hopping set up 32 research plots in the Deer Creek and Lime Kiln grazing allotments. She worked with Renee Kaler of the U.S. Forest Service and sheep ranchers Riley Kowitz and Mike and Mark Hensley to identify the best spots for targeting cheatgrass. On this sunny October day, she's happy to see the sheep grazing on 3 different fall-targeted grazing plots right where they're supposed to be.
And we're finding that a real advantage too is that the sheep have the herders with them, so herders can really direct where they go in the allotment and target specific areas, and so that's been great being able to work with them.
After 3 years of collecting data, Hopping's research team has found that sheep will eat cheatgrass in the spring and fall, but the timing is key. It all depends on the weather, snow, fall rains, and whether the cheatgrass is greening up and palatable to the sheep.
We're finding that there's been a lot of variability just in the weather across years, which really affects what the plants are doing, which then affects the results we're getting with the sheep.
She's hoping to extend the project another 3 years.
Every year the weather is so different, that makes it hard to draw really confident conclusions based on a wet year and a dry year. And so the more of those years we accumulate, we have more of that variation, then we can be more confident.
Cheatgrass, also known as downy brome or by its Latin name Bromus tectorum, is native to Eurasia. It was accidentally brought into the United States in the 1880s via ship ballast, contaminated crop seed, packing material, and other means. Once introduced to the U.S., cheatgrass quickly spread into the Great Basin of the West. By 1980, cheatgrass had spread to every county in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. It's an opportunistic annual plant that greens up earlier than native plants and outcompetes perennial grasses and forbs following wildfires and ground disturbance. Once cheatgrass dries up in late spring, it becomes a serious fire hazard. Research in the Intermountain West predicts that areas with 15% or higher levels of cheatgrass infestation are twice as likely to burn as native range and 4 times more likely to burn multiple times over the long term. So the idea of using sheep to reduce cheatgrass levels in areas like Deer Creek Canyon and Lime Kiln Gulch could be valuable.
It'd be a huge management tool. Permatees have continually told us that they will eat it. They run through the desert before they get here, where that's all they have to eat. And here, obviously, there's a lot more choices for the sheep. And so we wanted to see if we could make that happen in an area where they had choices.
Sheep rancher Riley Kowitz agrees.
It was a great idea. We got all of these sheep that need resources, so we might as well use some of them resources to clean up some bad resources.
The research project is exploring 2 other questions. 1, does targeted grazing with sheep have any unintended consequences to native plant communities or the soil? 2, if cheatgrass levels are reduced, how does that affect fire danger and fuels connectivity? spring research begins with catching 40 ewes and putting GPS collars on them. Sheep rancher Riley Kowitz grabs the rear hoof of a ewe, and Maddie Sorrentino quickly puts an orange GPS collar on the sheep, making sure it's not too tight.
That was a little bit of a rodeo. It goes fast. The sheep hooks are amazingly effective.
The GPS data is a key part of the study.
That allows us to track where the sheep are going and make sure that they are making it into each of our study plots. And also it allows us to figure out really how much time they've spent in each of those study plots.
Once the GPS collars have been put on the sheep, the animals run for the hills in search of fresh spring feed. In Deer Creek Canyon, the research plots track results where cheatgrass occupies at least 15% of the range.
That was a big job finding all the plots. We used a lot of satellite imagery of where cheatgrass is to direct where we should go looking for it, and then we just hiked literally hundreds of miles to find the places that we would choose. Talked with Riley and tried to figure out what would be realistic routes for the sheep to get between the plot.
In July, Hopping and the graduate students head into the field to gather research data.
We measure the plants in terms of what species are there, how much area are they covering, and then that includes the cheatgrass, but also all of the other plants that are there. And so we're trying to make sure we can understand impacts on wildflowers and perennial grasses and all the plants. So that's a lot of detailed measurements. Every 10 meters, we set up a small quadrat or little PVC pipe frame where we clip everything that's growing within those to look at the amount of plant material. We take it back to the lab, dry it, weigh it to see for cheatgrass, for dead plants, for shrubs, grasses, wildflowers, how much is there and how is it changing after the treatments.
In the spring, research results showed that the sheep consumed native grasses, forbs, and an equal amount of cheatgrass. In the fall, the sheep ate more cheatgrass and did not significantly affect native grasses and forbs.
Cuando no hay pasto, en esta temporada, la borrega come. Pero cuando en invierno, cuando está verde, no eat.
The soil research could be illuminating too.
Cheatgrass is really good at using nitrogen and outcompeting the native plants for it, and then using that as fertilizer to grow and be even more dominant. And so there's a possibility that with sheep in the plots, they could be essentially adding nitrogen and fertilizing it, and that could benefit cheatgrass.
April Hewlett, a range professor at Brigham Young University, is looking at how reduced cheatgrass infestation levels might affect fire danger and fuels connectivity.
We can measure gaps between the plant canopy, which will affect the way that wildfire would behave in these areas.
Some soil samples are placed in a greenhouse to see what sprouts. She calls that the seed bank study.
Cheatgrass is just so prolific, and so we're seeing in our seed bank study, we saw hundreds and hundreds of cheatgrass seeds would germinate in a very small area of soil, and so that just tells you the magnitude of the problem.
Native grasses and shrubs are growing in the greenhouse too. Over the life of the research project, new ideas keep sprouting.
There's a couple of graduate students at Brigham Young University working with April Hewlett as well, who made a targeted grazing board game for teachers to use in the classroom.
Overall, the Targeted Grazing with Sheep research project has gotten larger in scope with more collaborators over time. A key draw seems to be everyone's interest in working with the sheep in a beautiful area.
I got into this because I'm really interested in agriculture and I love sheep, and so that has just been really, really rewarding to work with sheep.
It's probably my favorite part is when we're doing the actual grazing treatments, because we get to be out here with the sheep, but it's also really cool to work with our amazing collaborators. I feel like we are just so lucky to have the producers we work with, and the sheep herders that are on their teams are just so nice, and it is such a great experience. It's more than I guess I thought it would be. It's really amazing.
People like to be out here, so we have the advantage of a beautiful place where our project is located, so I think people enjoy coming out and being part of it. It's been a wonderful experience. It's the best part of my job is getting to be out here with the sheep and the herders and working with the Forest Service and the producers. And the students, all of it. This is definitely the best part of the year.